Starbucks just fired their CEO after just 17 months. The company was $114 billion when he was hired and $74 billion when he left. That is a $40 billion faceplant. This is a story of hiring resume over results. Operators build while consultants advise. Let's get into it. Laxman Narasimhan was the CEO of Starbucks for only 17 months. He was hired in March of 2022 by the board of directors after an extensive search. They wanted to bring him in because of his experience. He spent over 20 years at Pepsi, where he last served as the chief commercial officer. Before that, he also served as the global chief digital officer. So basically, he looked like the perfect candidate for a big tech company. He's exactly what you would expect a tech CEO to look like. He's a tech guy with an MBA from Michigan Ross School of Business and a bachelor's degree in engineering from the University of Pune. But there was just one problem. He was never an operator. He's only ever been a consultant. And this is why he got fired. Brian Niccol, on the other hand, has always been an operator. He was the CEO of Taco Bell for 13 years. Before that, he was the president of KFC for 6 years. So he knows what it takes to run a business. He knows all the ins and outs. And this is why he was able to turn around Taco Bell and make it worth $8 billion. Meanwhile, Laxman destroyed $40 billion at Starbucks. Let me tell you how they got to this point. How Laxman got hired at Starbucks. In early 2022, Howard Schultz, the co-founder and former CEO of Starbucks, came out of retirement to become the interim CEO of Starbucks. This was during a time when Starbucks was facing some serious issues. Their same-store sales were down 9% year-over-year. Their stock price had crashed 25% in the last 6 months. And their customers were fed up with their new mobile app. Basically, everything was going bad at Starbucks. So the board of directors brought in Howard Schultz, who saved the company once before, to save them again. But while Schultz was able to stabilize the ship, the board of directors wanted to find a long-term solution, a real CEO who could take Starbucks into the next era of growth. This is when they met Laxman Narasimhan. Laxman had just the right amount of experience. He had worked in traditional brick and mortar retail as the head of Pepsi. He understood the importance of physical stores and the value of in-person interactions. At the same time, he also understood the importance of technology and data because he spent most of his career building and implementing agile ways of working, leading marketing and digital transformation initiatives, developing personalized customer experiences, and designing e-commerce platforms. So he seemed like the perfect person for the job. When Laxman was hired, the board of directors made it clear that he would be responsible for driving revenue growth, improving profitability, and enhancing the customer experience. In fact, Schultz stayed on for 2 months after Laxman was hired to ensure a smooth transition. He said, "I am confident that Laxman is the right leader to take Starbucks into its next chapter." So everybody was excited to have Laxman on board. They thought he was going to take Starbucks to the next level. And in theory, he did have a great plan. In his first earnings call as CEO, he outlined his 3 priorities for the company. First, he wanted to improve the customer experience by investing in technology and data. Second, he wanted to drive revenue growth by expanding the product line and entering new markets. And third, he wanted to enhance profitability by cutting costs and improving efficiency. Basically, he was going to do everything that needed to be done to make Starbucks a stronger company. So, in the short term, everything seemed to be going according to plan. Laxman was making good progress on all 3 of his priorities. But behind the scenes, things were starting to fall apart. How Laxman messed up at Starbucks. After getting hired at Starbucks, Laxman spent some time at the beginning trying to understand the business. He sat down with employees, customers, and suppliers to get their feedback on how to improve the company. But after collecting all this feedback, he never really did anything with it. He didn't implement any major changes or make any significant investments. Instead, he just kept doing the same thing that Starbucks had been doing for years. For example, one of Laxman's first big projects was launching a new mobile app. But instead of taking a fresh look at what customers wanted, he just hired a bunch of consultants from McKinsey and BCG to help him redesign the same app that Starbucks already had. These consultants told him to make the app more personalized, more efficient, and more user-friendly. So he spent millions of dollars redesigning the app only to find out that customers didn't even like it. They didn't see any real value in the new app. So customers didn't download it, and Starbucks lost millions of dollars. The same thing happened with his marketing campaigns. He tried to inject some of the creative energy that he had at Pepsi into Starbucks, but his campaigns just didn't resonate with the audience. They didn't get the same response. So Starbucks spent millions of dollars on marketing, but didn't see any real return on investment. On top of this, he was constantly fighting with the workers' union. He wanted to cut labor costs to improve profitability, but the union wasn't having it. So he couldn't cut labor costs. Basically, he wanted to take Starbucks in a new direction, but he never really had the support of the employees, the customers, or the shareholders. Everybody was happy with how things were going at Starbucks until Laxman showed up. When Laxman was hired, the board of directors expected him to come in and shake things up to take the company in a bold new direction. But Laxman never really did that. He was too afraid to upset the apple cart. He was too afraid to rock the boat. So he just kept doing the same thing that Starbucks had been doing for years, how Brian Niccol turned around Taco Bell. While Laxman was failing at Starbucks, Brian Niccol was turning around Taco Bell. Brian started his career as a lawyer, but he quickly realized that he didn't want to spend his life in a cubicle. So he quit his job and started working at Pizza Hut in 1988. Within 3 years, he became the youngest general manager in the company's history. Then he moved on to KFC and became the chief concept officer in 2007. During his tenure at KFC, he oversaw the launch of more than 100 new restaurants and the remodeling of more than 500 existing locations. He also led the development of new products such as the Double Down and the Kentucky Grilled Chicken. Basically, he helped turn around KFC and make it profitable again. This is when Yum! Brands, which owns KFC, sent him over to Taco Bell. Taco Bell had been struggling for years. Their sales were declining, their margins were shrinking, and their customers were bored with their menu. This is when Brian came in and started making changes. He simplified the menu, he improved the service, and he invested in technology. For example, he launched a new mobile app that allowed customers to order food and pay ahead of time. He also introduced a new loyalty program that rewarded customers for their repeat business. These changes helped boost sales, improve margins, and win back customers. Basically, he saved Taco Bell from bankruptcy and turned it into an $8 billion business. So, when Starbucks was looking for a new CEO, they wanted somebody who had experience turning around struggling companies. They didn't want somebody with an impressive resume. They wanted somebody who could actually get results. This is why they hired Brian Niccol and fired Laxman Narasimhan. To be honest, both of these guys are probably really smart and really capable. Laxman probably knows a lot more about technology and data than Brian does. But that doesn't really matter if you can't use those skills to generate revenue and profit. Brian might not have an impressive resume, but he knows how to generate results. This is why you should always hire operators over consultants. Consultants talk a good game, but they often don't know how to execute. Operators, on the other hand, don't talk a good game, but they know how to get the job done. As the famous quote goes, in theory, there is no difference between theory and practice. But in practice, there is. Please do well to subscribe and like this video. This will help my channel, please.